Hi, welcome to the Lisa Saunders Show. Today we're going to talk about caregiving. And that's why I've invited Dr. Joanne Z. Moore, a physical therapist who not only knows how to keep us physically strong while we're having the task of caregiving, but she also cared for her husband when he had cancer. And you run the caregiver support group at Niantic Community Church. Mm-hmm. So you're full of care. So can you tell us why it's important? Why did you want to talk about this? Now, I've done it for years.
I know.
And so I know why it's important. But for somebody just turning it on thinking, why do I need to hear about this when everybody around me is fairly healthy? Why do we need to talk about it?
Right. Well, caregiving is something that we do throughout our life, whether we're babysitting for children or taking care of our own children. But the fact of the matter is, most of us spend more years taking care of our aging parents and our aging spouses than we did taking care of our children.
Oh, really?
And that surprises all of us.
Yes.
Why does old age catch us by surprise? We know that it's going to happen, and yet everyone is surprised by it.
Wow, okay. First of all, before we get into the work of caregiving, what are the joys of caregiving? I mean, I know there are deep joys. I cared for my severely handicapped daughter for 16 years. You cared for your husband when he had cancer, and that was how long did that last?
7 years.
So 7 years before he passed away.
And I had my mother-in-law for 15 years after a stroke as well.
So you really have done caregiving.
I really have. It's a big part of my life.
All right. What are the physical demands on caregiving? Because there are a lot.
Caregiving is probably the hardest work that you ever do.
Physical work are you talking about?
It's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It's done on little sleep sometimes. It's done on poor nutrition sometimes. And it's done with multiple demands coming at you.
All right, then what do you need to do? Like, you were going to show us some exercises, because I know when I was caring for my father, it was 2 months of just being in the hospital and not really going anywhere, eating terrible food, whatever I could get, and not having much room to exercise. What should we do? What are things we can do?
Right. Well, the basis of all of our health is physical. I think that to keep ourselves in the best physical condition, and I didn't understand that at the time, and so I'm sharing something that I learned over time. I gained 50 pounds during those 20, 25 years that I was a caregiver in my home. I felt that I was on a short leash. I couldn't even go out in the yard without something going wrong in the house. And so what I've done is developed an exercise program that people can do in a very confined space.
All right, this is great. Okay.
Because sometimes you really don't want to leave them alone.
Right.
If you're in a hospital room, for example, they're at everyone's mercy, and you feel guilty leaving them alone, and you're worried.
Right. So can you show us, what can we do in a hospital room, in so little room with, you know, we didn't bring all our weights and all those other things without our equipment. What can we do?
Okay. Well, the first thing to do is deep breathing exercises so that you relax and that you get your good oxygen to your whole body. So you can start by just deep breathing, using your whole lung.
And what does that really do for you? Like, I always see that, but I always wonder,
well,
what does
first
that
of all,
really
it gets
do?
you oxygen so that you can think more clearly.
Are you really need to do that to get enough oxygen?
And it stimulates the vagal nerve next to your abdominal aorta, and that helps pull in your parasympathetic nervous system and helps you relax.
Really? So there's really
It
something
really does.
to it.
There's
It's not something that somebody just made up.
Correct.
This is why I like having a physical therapist tell us, because they can tell us what's going on.
Right.
Okay.
It pulls in your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your sense of relaxation. Okay, and then just simple exercises like rolling your shoulders back. You know.
And what is that doing?
Well, a lot of our work is forward.
Right.
And so we want to come back, keep the posture upright and good. I'm going to stand up. You know, the pressure we're under is so negative when someone we love is sick that we start to have this hunched posture. And so what I'm doing is bringing you up, back, having you breathe more deeply. Pull your head back. It gives you spinal cord a straighter line. Side bend, left and right.
Should you go as far as you can, or?
As far as is comfortable. There should never be any pain with exercise. And you can rotate left and right. And this might not seem like a lot, but if somebody's in the hospital for 2 weeks and then you have to come home and you're starting to lift and help them in and out of the wheelchair, you're doing a lot of these motions. And if you've been sitting there eating donuts for those 2 weeks, it's going to be much harder to do this.
Right, okay.
And then you want to get stronger. So you can do things, you know, in any hospital room, there's going to be a little bath basin and a bunch of towels. So you go find it. And that's really all the equipment that you need. And you can put it down on the ground, lift it up, and then lift it way over your head. And you can repeat that.
Now that's so light that I wonder, is it really doing anything for you?
Well, you can find things in the room. Often they'll have those little canned drinks that weigh a couple of pounds.
Okay.
Or fill it up to where it's a comfortable weight for you.
Okay.
You should be able to do it between 15 and 30 repetitions. It shouldn't be, if you can't, it's too heavy. Take
I
something
wished I
out.
had done all that, because then I didn't realize that I was getting so out of shape that then
You
I started
don't.
pulling my neck out and my back, and not realizing it was all because I just hadn't done these normal
You're right.
movements. Okay.
Get that away. And then you can do a sit to stand, where you come to the edge of your seat and just come up and down. Don't use your armrests if you don't have to, and just repeat.
And what is that?
That's really
Strengthening
getting your
legs?
quads in there.
Okay.
Because if you're going to have to lift that person, then these muscles need to be strong.
All right. Now, how do you lift? I know people always say how to do it, and I always forget. What's the safe
How to
way to
lift?
lift? Yeah.
Well, you want to use your legs because those are the biggest muscles.
Okay.
You want to keep your core in a neutral position, not bending way forward or way back. So you're going to get as close as you can to the object that you want to lift, and you're going to hug it as close to you as you can, because everything weighs more when it's way out there.
Right.
So you're going to keep it here, and then keep your back in a neutral position, and rise using your leg muscles.
Okay.
And then try not to twist with the weight in your hand, but try to step instead, and then lower.
Wow. That's a good thing you were a physical therapist. Do you think that helped you? Well, you said you still
Absolutely.
gained 50 pounds. How could you avoid that when you're sitting in one spot?
When someone came to visit and they were trying to be kind, they would bring a pastry.
Right.
So, and of course I took it. But what you need to do is say, what I'd like is for you to go for a walk with me. Or would you sit with him or her while I go for a walk?
Oh, so these are good things to ask people who want to help. All right, so that's what or you could say, oh, next time you bring me food, because I was desperate for real food
Right.
when I was in the hospital, and it was
Right.
so hard to get because I couldn't leave.
Right.
Whether it was my daughter or my father, I couldn't leave them.
Yeah, just bring me a bowl of fruit. That's really what you should ask for.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's how you ask for support. So what are the things that people should be asking for in general? Like, you know, if people want to say, oh, how can I help? Usually
Right.
people mean it when they say that, how can I help? So what are the things we should ask for?
And when they ask you, you can't think of
Right,
anything
you
at the
can't.
time. So what you need to do is have a little notebook in your purse. These people offered to help, and write their name down and their contact information right there. And then when something comes up, you can call them.
Like I said, we know food is important.
Right.
Or if they could sit with your loved one so that you could get out and stretch your legs.
Right. Sometimes you need help with other family members. Can you babysit for the children while I take grandma to the doctor? So you have, this is not the only person you're taking care of
Right,
usually.
right.
So you need to be able to ask for help with other people too. And you need to form a team around you, smart people who can help you figure things out sometimes.
Right.
Because you get a lot of information coming in all at once. And when you're forming a team of people, you don't want all people like you. For example, if you're a very conciliatory person, trying to go along and get along and make peace with everyone, you need someone else who doesn't mind a little conflict, who kind of gets charged up by stirring the pot. Because they're going to come in and say, well, did you ask about this? Did you ask about that?
Now, before, I don't want to get too far from the exercise.
Okay.
In case somebody forgot what we just showed them, how can they get this? You have a video and you have a book on the exercises that you can do in your room.
Right.
Okay, where? At your website?
Those are available at Shoreline Physical Therapy in East Lyme.
And that's your practice that you own in East Lyme, and they can just go to the website.
They can go to the
and
website.
call, and the information's on the TV screen, so
Right.
people can find out how to get this, so they can
Right.
refer to it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I wonder, you thought it was important that we understand the diagnosis. Now, I found it upsetting that I felt like I knew more of the diagnosis and I didn't really want to share it so that the patient would give up hope. But you say it's important to understand the diagnosis, and why is that?
Well, I think it's very important to understand the diagnosis because it helps you set realistic expectations for the patient. In other words, if you know that the diagnosis is Alzheimer's, you're not going to get frustrated when they ask you the same question 5 times.
Okay.
Because you know that it's not that they're not trying. You know that they really can't remember what you told them a few minutes ago. And so it helps keep your frustration level down if you understand that they really can't do that.
Okay.
Or if the person can do better if they try, then it gives you that cue that you should encourage them, give them a second chance, maybe teach it a different way, and try to bring out the best in them so that they can be as independent as they can be, and with as little frustration for both of you as possible.
Now, how many total years were you caring? Were you caring for your husband and your mother-in-law at the same time?
No, thankfully.
So you had how many years of caregiving?
Well, 15 with my mother-in-law and 7 with my husband.
That's a lot.
And we haven't talked about my parents yet.
Have you? And then what about your parents?
Well, they're pretty independent.
So far.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you choose? So say you need to, your spouse is sick, or you have a mother coming to live with you. What kind of adaptive equipment? How do you even go about doing that?
Right. Well, when we moved my mother-in-law up here from North Carolina, we rented an RV and we put her bedroom furniture in, and she was able to lie down and sleep in the RV on the way up. And then we turned our dining room into a bedroom for her. And we made the bathroom as accessible as possible with the shower and a bench, the grab bars.
Now, how do you find out? Is this, would a doctor tell you, like, this
I think
is what you
visiting
need?
nurses are really great at helping you to do that.
They help you figure this out and where to get. This stuff gets expensive, and what if
It
does insurance
does.
cover it usually? Do you know?
Often it does, if you're homebound.
Uh-huh.
Medicare has a lot of different regulations.
And
And then there are closets where you can go too. Our basement at Shoreline Physical Therapy in East Lyme is filled with stuff that people have donated that they don't need anymore. So we have a number of bath seats and toilet seats
that
and
people
walkers.
That people could just get
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah.
From you? Oh, that's wonderful.
If someone has given it to us, we give it to whoever needs it.
Oh, okay.
We don't charge for it or anything.
All right. Again, they should just contact you, your physical therapy.
Right.
Okay. What is the best advice you could give to a caregiver?
The best advice, I would say, is to relax and take one day at a time. Accept help from anybody who will help you. Don't try to be a hero and do it all yourself.
Well, people probably feel guilty, though. Like, what if they think, I just can't handle them in my home anymore?
Well, there comes a day when that's true, and that's okay. And there's a time to move to a place where better care can be provided more easily. You can still go and visit every day.
Right, right.
You can still take them out to church on Sunday. You can still bring them home for holidays and family meetings. But you can be just a friend then, or just a daughter, or just a spouse. You no longer have to be the one who gets up in the middle of the night with a bedpan and things like that. So the relationship can actually be more loving and more joyful because you just get to do the fun stuff that you love to do with that person.
Right. And how do you, now does that support group that you lead at Niantic Community Church, I mean, is this where people are talking about how to stay cheerful and smiling when you're with the bedpan in the middle of the night?
We give each other support. We understand that the exhaustion is quite overwhelming, and there's often not a lot of appreciation by the person who needs the care. So the person feels that they're working very, very hard with very little recognition and appreciation, and sometimes that makes you feel more tired and harder to go on, even though your intentions are very good. So we're there to tell each other that you're doing a great job, and just to recognize the effort that you're putting in, and to be really specific about, gee, thanks for telling me about that technique. It really worked for me. When we give each other that feedback, it helps.
Now, how can you, well, if somebody's not dying, you can't get hospice.
Right. Oh, dying's easy.
Right. So
living is hard.
Because when you're living, is there a way, are there volunteer organizations that come if you have somebody that's...
There is unfortunately not enough. Even the senior citizen centers don't provide much for home care. You have to go to the center to get the recreational activities and all that are provided.
That's one thing I don't understand is that everyone's always talking about age gracefully in home, but then it seems like you need an army to come to you at home. And still, I wonder, aren't you going to be lonely? Like, I think when I'm older, I think I'd rather go to a retirement community or something.
That's just it.
So that I could walk out my door and have people to wave to. You know,
there's a real benefit to that, and we're seeing more and more communities built up, over 55 communities, where people do live in close proximity to one another. In addition to an assisted living facility where you have a common hallway that you're walking in and a common dining room that you're eating in, so that you have constant interaction.
Yeah, because I can't imagine that.
I think loneliness is one of the biggest problems in old age.
What if you have to go, if you can't take care of yourself anymore, what's your ideal, because you've been on the outside looking in, what would be your ideal situation if you can't take care of yourself anymore?
I had a very frank conversation with my sons and their wives. I sat the four of them down, and I told them first off that I trusted them, and that if there came a time that they felt that I couldn't manage alone in the house for any reason, that they needed to do what they thought was right for me.
What if you say, no, I don't want you, like, you're being reasonable now, but you know how you get a little older?
That's why I said it now. I said, even if I argue with you, I want you to know that in my right mind, I know that you're going to do what's best for me.
Okay, and what do you want them to do?
Whatever they think is the right thing. I told them that they don't have to be the one to take care of me, but it is their responsibility to make sure that someone is taking care of me.
Okay, so would you like to go, do you think it's ideal to be in somebody's house if you can, or do you think it's ideal, so you think it's ideal to get, what, assisted living? I don't really know the different levels of care.
For me, I would not want to be in their home.
Okay.
I'd rather be nearby in a facility.
Is it called assisted living? What's it called if you need some help?
I call it going, gone. There's independent living, and then assisted living, and then nursing home. Independent living means you have your car, you come and go as you like. It's like a little condo, but it's on the campus.
Okay.
And then there's assisted living.
And somebody will look in on you if, like, they don't hear from you for days, or?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Then what's the point of living there?
You have a lot of amenities, like you can use the pool, you can go into the dining room and eat at the assisted living area.
Okay.
So you have all the amenities that are there.
Independent living. Is that
It
two
is
different
independent.
things?
They're all on one campus.
Okay, okay.
Independent condos, and then assisted living, where a lot of them you can still have your car, but there's someone who's going to check in on you every day. All your meals are supplied, your laundry's done, your cleaning is done.
Ooh, can we go there now?
I know. It's like going to camp. It's like going to camp.
How old do you have to be to get in there?
You have to be rich to get in there.
Oh, okay. So,
They'll take you young, but you're rich.
okay, because I'm excited to turn 55 because then it's such a good deal at the Groton Senior Center. The exercise facility is really inexpensive.
Yeah.
So
There's some great advantages to getting older, and many people live to an old age very independently.
how old do you have to be to get into the movies at a good deal? Like, what's,
I think maybe 65.
oh, so the really good deals don't kick in till you're 65. Okay. All right. So that would be your ideal, is to be in that kind of, those kind of.
For me, but I think it's going to vary from person to person.
Okay. So it's not necessary that everyone live at home, but if
Correct.
they do, somebody's going to be caring for them. Now, what are the, like, other than, let's talk about some of the joys of caregiving, because clearly it gives a person purpose.
It does.
You know, there's no wondering, am I doing God's will? Yeah, if you're taking care of somebody and you're busy, you always have something to do. And then you don't have to feel guilty if you want to watch TV all day, because if that's all the person can do, then you can watch a lot of old movies.
You can watch a lot of old movies. Actually, you don't. You're working pretty hard, as you know. I think some of the joys are the intimacy that you develop with that person, the true deep friendship and mutual trust and respect you have for one another, and the things that I've learned along the way about the dignity of late life. The lessons that I learned are pretty phenomenal.
Like,
Well, I learned the lesson of humility.
meaning what?
Which just means that I thought I was pretty good. I thought I had everything understood, and I was a physical therapist, and I knew how to do all these skills, and no problem, I can do this. And then the fatigue starts to set in, and maybe you get a little short-tempered. Maybe some days you just don't feel like getting up to do the bedpan in the middle of the night. And maybe you want to go out because it's a nice day and you can't. And you start to resent that short leash that you're on. So I learned that I wasn't so strong. I wasn't so wonderful, that I had all the human frailties that I had read about in everybody else. So I became a more compassionate person now. Now when I see someone who's angry or frustrated, I remember how bad it felt to feel that way. And I can be more kind to them and more compassionate to them. And I can understand better where they are.
Where somebody who could be cranky and
Right.
it's annoying to be around them because they're bitter and cranky.
Right.
You understand if they're a caregiver.
I now come from it with a much more compassionate point of view.
What would you say to somebody who's going through a
I'd say,
hard time?
It sounds like you're having a hard time. What's going on? Just ask. Just care.
Just ask.
You just have to care. It's
Right.
not that you're going to say the right thing, because probably you're not.
Right.
But just demonstrate that you care, and give them respect and appreciation for the task that they're doing. You can always ask if there's anything that you can do to help.
What's it like to not, because you're not, right now you're in a free zone right now, right?
I'm on a really long leash right now. And that's the next step, is I can do anything I want now, and I have no idea what I want to do.
Well, you've been busy. You started a magazine. You wrote a book. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, I wrote a book called After the Loss of a Spouse, What's Next? And it's available at Bank Square Books and on Amazon.
So that was big, writing a book, and you started a publishing company and a magazine, and your magazine is what?
Pathfinder, and you can see it at pathfindermag.com. And it talks about how other people deal with the loss of a spouse and what they've gone on to do afterwards.
Right, because now,
You can do anything you want.
Right, because for a long time you're caregiving.
That's right. For the first time in my life, I can do anything I want.
When Well, you're doing improv. You're going, yeah, from here you're going on to perform.
Yeah.
What's your improv group?
It's called LaughWorks out of New London. Kristen Hartnett is our director, and she's wonderful. We have a performance at the Norwich Arts Center tonight.
Oh, very nice. I've seen some of those. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are. It's just fun.
All right, so and you started not an orphanage, but
I visited an orphanage in Kathmandu, Nepal, and I volunteered there for 3 weeks. And I found, because I'm a physical therapist, I sought out the children with special needs in the community. And we got custody of a few of those kids, and we do fundraising to support them.
Right.
At the Nepal Orphans Home in Kathmandu. It's a fabulous organization.
I enjoy being at your, we have some of our meetings at your practice, and I just enjoy seeing everybody getting worked on and all the equipment. And you've had people come on to show us how to shovel. That's really important. Again, when you're a caregiver, you're also doing all the shoveling.
That's right.
Right? So that's an important skill to have.
That's right.
And there's ways to shovel so that you're saving your back.
Just getting a wheelchair in and out of the car is really hard. They're so heavy.
Right.
So if you can afford it, get a small travel wheelchair that doesn't weigh much, that you can just always leave in the car. And that way you're not lifting a heavy wheelchair in and out all the time.
So these are the things that maybe if insurance doesn't cover, if people ask, what can I do? Maybe you could say, gee, if you really, if you wanted to start a fund for a light wheelchair, because I don't know, insurance isn't always going to cover a real wheelchair and a light wheelchair and a this and a that.
Right. Or they may provide an elevated toilet seat for one bathroom only, but you may have one in the bedroom and then one down at the other end of the house that you'd like to have too.
Now, how do you deal with doing the
Things like
bedpan?
that.
Is that just something you have to not think about and just do it?
Yep.
Well, we only have 2 minutes left, so just what do you wish people knew?
I wish that I knew that people would know that they're going to get old someday and talk to your adult children or the other responsible adults in your life. Talk to them and put it in writing, what it is that you want for yourself.
Oh, that's a good idea, putting it in writing.
Because that's going to eliminate conflict among your children, and it'll help them with their decision making, and it'll ease their guilt if they do have to put you into a home somewhere. So I think talking about it as a family and letting them know how you feel and giving them permission to only supervise your care and not be the main providers of it, and give them permission to go out on a date once in a while with their spouse and to go on vacation and to enjoy their lives.
Right.
Because we don't want to take their lives from them.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Joanne,
you.
for coming.
It's my pleasure.
And I'll do
Thank
those
you, Lisa.
exercises next time I'm trapped in a room.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Lisa Saunders Show, and I'll see you next week.